Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Executive Policy Committee for May 13th, 2025. We're here on Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe and Innu and Dakota peoples, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. Yesterday was Manitoba's birthday. It was Manitoba Day, so I want to recognize that. Also want to recognize that it was the birthday of Jade, our clerk, yesterday as well. Belated happy birthday to Jade. And we are here. I'm here with Councillor Vivian Santos, Councillor Janice Lukes, Councillor Evan Duncan, I believe, is on his way. Councillor Ross Eady, Councillor Jeff Rawadi, our acting interim CAO, Tracy Graham is here as well, and our clerks and members of our public service who will be joining us throughout the morning on various reports. I think we'll entertain a motion then to receive the previous minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Rawadi. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have
Suspension of the rules to add the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development addendum report.
okay. There is the motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. I believe, Madam Clerk, we have one delegate this morning.
Correct. Our first delegate, or our only delegate, is Kurosh Dus. I'm going to try and pronounce that, but please correct me if I'm wrong. Dusjenis, spokesperson of the Association of Families of Flight PS 752 victims, to be heard in support of welcoming Winnipeg creating new flight marker, report number 5.
Yes, just down this way, Coach. Yes, thank you. Good morning, welcome, good to see you today.
Thank you, Mayor.
So you're speaking to item 5, welcome Winnipeg creation of new marker, flight ES 752, Memorial Plaza. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mayor and members of the APC. Thank you for allowing me to speak today in support of the Flight PS 752 Memorial Projects. Before I begin, on behalf of the Association of Families of Flight PS 752 victims, I want to extend our deepest condolences on the passing of your colleagues and friend, Councillor Jason Schreier. Our thoughts are with you during this time of loss. As you may know, on January 8, 2020, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran shot down the Ukrainian International Airlines flight PS 752 just minutes after takeoff from Tehran. All 176 innocent passengers and crew were killed, including 55 Canadian citizens, 30 permanent residents, and many others with deep ties to Canada. One of the victims was an unborn child, a life never given a chance to begin. To this day, the Islamic regime has refused to allow an independent investigation or to prosecute those responsible. Our association was formed to seek justice, accountability, and truth, not only for our loved ones, but to prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again. Through our advocacy efforts, Canada, Ukraine, Sweden, and United Kingdom have jointly pursued a legal action against Iran before the International Civil Aviation Organization and the International Court of Justice. In addition, our association took a historic step in September 2022 by submitting an Article 15 communication to International Criminal Court, formally requesting the prosecutor to open an investigation into crimes related to the downing of Flight PS 752. Here in Winnipeg, we have worked tirelessly for more than 3 years in close collaboration with the Iranian community of Manitoba, city officials, and community leaders to establish a meaningful memorial in Scorfield Park, a place not only to honor the victims, but to also reflect the broader call for the justice and the safer skies for all. Thanks to the support of a council and the generous grants from the city of Winnipeg and the province of Manitoba, we have made a significant progress. On October 1st, 2022, we planted 176 trees and shrubs, one of each for life lost. followed by installation of the benches and the central memorial boulder. The memorial wall has been since constructed, and we all now ready for its final phase. The installation of a commemorative plaque and the engraving of 176 names. We are especially grateful to the Deputy Mayor, Janice Lux, for her steadfast support, leadership, and compassion throughout this journey. Thank you. Today, I respectfully ask for your final approval so we can complete the final phase. With your support, we hope to unveil the completed site on July 5th, 2025, which marks day 2000 since the tragedy. That day will serve as a powerful and symbolic moment for families and friends from around the world to gather, to grieve, and to continue for our collective pursuit of justice. I also want to note that Canada has formally designated January 8 as the National Day of Remembrance for victims of air disasters, ensuring that the lives lost in Flight PS752 and other air tragedies are never forgotten. This memorial, the first of its kind in Canada, will be a place of remembrance, reflection, and resolve. It will ensure that Winnipeg stands as a city that remembers its residents, respects truth, and stands up for justice. Thank you again for your time, your compassion, and your leadership. We hope to welcome you all at the dedication on 5th of July, 2025.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions at all or comments? Councillor Lukes?
I just want to thank you, Karush, for all your work, for the entire effort in helping people understand the importance of defending Canada, and also your work with lobbying, and you suffered a great personal loss in this. And I'm really happy on behalf of the city that we're creating this beautiful, tranquil spot that people can reflect. And I want to thank the Indigenous Relations Department and Welcoming Winnipeg for their support also of this. Territorial acknowledgement will also be installed at the plaza. So it's a beautiful plaza, beautiful commemoration. You've done an incredible amount of work, and it's not over yet, but thank you.
Thank you kindly. If I may add, Mr. Mayor.
Of course.
Mayor David West of Richmond Hill is actually want to travel on that day to Winnipeg because they lost in their community 46 members of, on that flight. And they have been following this memorial project very closely. And it's just waiting for the approval so they can do their basically travel arrangement. And also families of victims from around the Canada and probably outside of Canada coming to basically mark the 2000 Day of Remembrance.
Thank you. Yes, and I want to echo what Councillor Lukes has said, and thank you for your leadership and leadership of members of the community to continue to work to honor, memorialize all the victims, including, as you said, 9 Winnipeggers, and as Councillor Lukes indicated, your own personal deep loss. I remember absolutely appreciate Councillor Lukes' leadership on this work. I was there the day we were planting the trees, and so this would be just a very fitting and beautiful way to kind of close off ultimately this this site as a place of perpetual remembrance and honoring these victims. So thank you so much for your presentation. I look forward to supporting this. I think Councillor Lukes has one more comment.
Karush, if you could share, please, with Council or with the Executive Policy Committee, when the location was selected, when we selected that location, at that time, I don't think we were really aware of at the end of the street, at the end of the walkway, a residence of a family that actually lived there, right?
Yes. Just across from the park is on Columbia Drive, number 325. They were close friends of mine and the client. The whole family was perished. And there was a father, mother, and the daughter, 10 years old daughter. She was a school student across the street. And this is really befitting, especially with the help of Councillor Lukes, when we chose that location, is really, really meaningful. There were 29 children on that flight, and having that play structure nearby is kind of reminding all those children too. It's a very, really moving and meaningful sight for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we look forward to supporting this, so thank you so much.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Have a good day. All right, moving then into our agenda. Item number 1 is the monthly update on supportive housing, addiction, and social action indicators. And so I believe, Ms. Graham, we have Lizzie Rappaport here for us for this report. Invite her forward.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm here for our monthly update on housing units approved by the City of Winnipeg as it relates to our Housing Accelerator Fund, as well as other initiatives. So I'll start on the first page on Table 1, where we outline housing units approved through development applications, development permits, and building permits. I'll just note development applications number has gone down since last month as we're finalizing some tracking methodology. The development applications are tracked manually just through an Excel spreadsheet in the department. So there was an error that we noticed from last month, so that's been corrected. So you'll actually see that number go down, but it'll be corrected going forward. Development permits and building permits have each gone up by a few hundred units. And then if you turn to the second page, Table 2 is building permits as it relates to our Housing Accelerator Fund agreement. So we've increased, as I said, a couple hundred units, and we're about halfway through our 3-year Housing Accelerator Fund agreement. So we have about, I think we are at 41% of our units. So we're a little bit below 50% where we might want to be, but we expect in the next few months that number will increase. The majority of building permits typically come in the spring and summer. All the units we approved under our half capital grants haven't gotten to the building permit stage yet. They're coming in. We just had the first one signed this week with 15 units. So there's 2,500 units that are still coming through the grants program over the next few months. So I'm not concerned with that number, but just for your update on that, we are a little bit below multifamily within proximity to frequent transit, but again, all the units approved under our grant program are within transit, and we're above in some categories, which is just good news, like missing middle. We're beyond where we need to be by this time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions at all? Councilor Lukes.
If you could just recap, all right? So now we're in our third tranche of funding, right?
We're in our second. We will receive our third tranche in January of next year.
On the third, just recap what the third is, because there was an RFP that was out recently, right?
We had expressions of interest for our land. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I remember seeing it. I remember being a little concerned because I had developers call me because they thought phase 3 wasn't going forward because we weren't sure about the election. Now we've had the election, so.
So maybe I'll comment on year 3. We assume it's going to be business as usual with the new Liberal government. We haven't actually been able to engage with our CMHC colleagues yet because they're still technically in the caretaker period post-election until government actually resumes, which I believe might be this morning after the announcement of the cabinet. So we assume it's business as usual until we hear otherwise. So we will be submitting our year 2 report by December of this year.
Right.
And assuming that all looks good, which again I have no concerns of, we're meeting our targets, we're meeting our milestones, we would receive our 3rd out of 4 payments in January, so 30.6 million. We're still under the same agreements to meet our building permits by December 2026, and we have until December 2027 to spend the money.
And the third tranche of funding is to be used for, just recap it again?
So some of it has been approved by council already and some of it has not. So we have to report back before the end of the year on our plans for year 3. So we're just developing that right now.
Okay.
Council approved $12 million for the infrastructure program, which we will launch hopefully within the next few weeks now that everything looks good at the federal level.
Good.
We released details on our website a few weeks ago on what council approved in January, so the development community is already aware of what's coming. There's going to be $10 million that council approved for the second payment for True North's development of Portage Place and SEO's development of the Hudson's Bay, Wawanea. And then everything else will come forward to council for approval before the end of the year.
Right, so the balance is about 14 million then?
8 million, so 22 has already essentially been committed.
30, okay.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Great, okay, good, thank you.
Of
Question.
course, yep.
So, in this half funding, you know, we have developers that, that have existing housing, I guess I guess you'd call it short-term rental. I think of a hotel, we have a hotel that's got, let's say, 40 rooms in it, shared washroom facilities and everything, and they want to upgrade it. It's not new housing, but it needs upgrades, and none of this funding is eligible for that. Is that correct?
Not as of yet, because our Housing Accelerator Fund agreement, we do need to create new units. We haven't committed any funding to any kind of renovation funding because of that requirement.
Right.
It is a permitted use of fund under our agreement.
It is a permitted
It is a
use.
permitted use of fund, but we should be targeting most of our funding towards actually creating new units to meet that building permit target. So by the time we get to year 4 funding planning, where we'll have presumably already met our building
Right.
permit targets,
Right.
there's probably going to be, I would suggest, more flexibility coming forward from the public service on how that funding could create long-term systemic change as it relates to development approvals or housing. Right now, all of the funding is focused on really accelerating those units. To
New
that December
units.
New units by December 2026.
So has this clearly been articulated to hotel owner-type individuals? It has,
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you, great.
Thank you. Any other questions at all? All right, thank you for the report. Appreciate that. Councillor Braun, do you want to move receipt of this report?
So moved.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. Item 2, legislative changes, Public Utilities Board regulation. This is a motion that had come forward from colleagues. As councillors may know, we cannot finance NUPIC on our own power without some change in our approach to debt or without federal and provincial help. We're working on that right now. I know the Premier's office, my office, staff, senior public servants, including our CFO, have been in discussions with updates to the federal government to explore and review every possible option to get NUPIC financed as a public project. In fact, the first meeting we had as a group, getting all these teams together, was as recent as May the 7th. So there's a good working relationship between the city staff and the staff from the province of Manitoba with, as I said, regular updates to provincial team members, or federal team members, pardon me. So since some of those options in discussion include various scenarios that could change our rate structure, create a new NUPIC debt structure, even really use a new public authority to carry some of the financing, I think this motion may not be, should be received as information at this time because it may disrupt those discussions. And the potential result of those discussions may make all the work to respond to the motion obsolete within months. So with this in mind, I don't know, Councillor Bois, if you have a motion on this?
Thank you. Again, I have concerns with doing this at this time as well with those negotiations that are ongoing. Also, I mean, we have an affordability crisis right now, and part of my concern is the PUB has the ability and has been known for other utilities to actually increase rates even faster and further. So based on that, I will move to receive this as information.
Thank you. All right. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Item 3 is Citizen Member Appointments Board of Revision. They're getting circulated right now. The names are coming around. We'll just give a moment for that to be given to everybody, to have a quick look and review. Thank you. You can see there are really 5 clauses in the motion, and I'm wondering, Councillor Duncan, if you would just make this motion?
Yes, sorry, just quickly reviewing here. Okay. Yes, so I'll move that the appointments be approved. Is that the wording that I'm looking for on these types of things, Madam Clerk?
Yeah, you're just moving clauses 1 to 5.
Okay, I'll move clauses 1 to 5
Okay.
as outlined in the report.
Is there before us? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. And then item 4 is the Board of Revision Annual Report. I've got one question, so I think that maybe our clerks, whomever, who are ready to field these questions, if we can have it, please. This is the Board of Revision Annual Report, and it's to be received as information, but I do have a question related to it. It's the 2024 report.
And joining us are Andrew Poitras, Deputy City Clerk, and Visa Hunter, Secretary to the Board of Revision.
Okay. Good morning, both of you. Welcome to both of you. I just had a question for clarity on page 3 of the report. Page 3 of the report, at the top of the page, there's a table. The following table shows the amount of the 2025 base assessment by classification for applications received by the board. And then what it's got is at the top, it's got the right-hand side, total value being appealed. And you go down to the bottom, it's 3 billion. And then the line below says the value of realty assessment on the 2025 rule was 25.3. So I'm just, I guess, how much was appealed versus the total value of the realty assessment?
So the total appealed, it's the 2025 base amount was 25.3.
Okay,
This includes, the assessment is broken down
yeah,
out of that as well. So that's the total as a whole that we received from last year.
okay. And the total value, but that's not the total value being appealed.
That is the total value being appealed.
It is.
Yes.
I'm just like, okay, so maybe it's me kind of misunderstanding, I think, the two, because there's an amount, there's the total value of our assessment roll, and then there's the amount, some portion of that is under appeal. Not, the total amount hasn't been appealed, the total value has not been appealed.
Right.
My point is not everybody's appealing their assessment, right? So I'm just wondering I guess what's the breakdown of what's being appealed?
This was what was received as a total of applications received from all of last year.
Okay, so the total amount under appeal was 25.3-ish billion.
Correct.
That was how much is the value of what's being appealed versus what is the total value? If 5% of it, let's say 20%, 15% of all the assessed was being appealed, what's the total value of all of our assessments?
You're right, Mr. Mayor, I don't have that total.
Okay, no problem.
Included in here.
Okay, there we go. So I guess just that, sorry, I'll just finish. Because I guess the sentence underneath there, which says the value of the realty assessment on the roll, 2025 roll, was 25.3. And I was reading that to say that's not the total value of the
Yes.
city's realty
Right,
assessment.
you're correct. That's
Okay.
something we can get adjusted into our next.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that.
Right.
So the value of realty assessment on the 2025 roll under appeal was, or something like that?
Correct, no, I understand.
Okay, that's good. That was me just trying to understand clarity. Councilor Lukes?
If you could email us the total assessment roll, the value would be great.
Right.
And I guess include it in next year's report. And of that amount that was appealed, what was settled? Like where does it say what the difference is?
And we can, we do need to contact assessment and taxation to get those numbers. We can include that in an email that we send to you.
So why don't we put that in the report? We just don't?
Well, the purpose of this report is simply to just deal with the appeal process. Specific numbers and all that is, again, it's, assessment and taxation would have those finer details, and we can certainly get that, and
Okay,
we can
if
do
you
so.
could.
And
Sure.
if you'd like this included in future reports, happy to do that. We can certainly build that in. But
Okay,
in the
just
meantime,
email it to us for now is great. The total assessment roll and then the outcome of what was appealed.
yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
I will take a moment to commend the team, obviously the Board of Revision, clerks, everyone, when you take a look at the last page, I mean, that's a lot of appeals that have been heard, right? The board's first hearing occurred on July 19th, 2024. The last hearing with respect to the 2025 roll was February 14th, 2025. The revision process for the year is now complete. Like that's almost 5,200 appeals that were heard. So that's a lot of work. So appreciate that. Yeah, if we could just get those other numbers, that'd be good. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions on this? Okay, Councilor Duncan, you want to move this as information then?
Yes, so moved to receive this information.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Item 5 is the Welcome Winnipeg matter related to creating the new marker, Flight PS 752 Memorial Plaza. Councilor Lukes.
Yeah, I'd like to, again, commend Karush and the Iranian community for the work that they've done on this, and also commend Welcoming Winnipeg for working with them and going through the work with the consultation and just reviewing it all. I know they have a lot to do, and I know we've been waiting for this one, and I just want to thank them for the work that they've done on it.
Agreed. Well said. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 6, City of Winnipeg Rapid Housing Initiative Round 3, distribution of program contingency funds. Councilor Brawadi.
I'll move the recommendation.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 7, progress on the proactive cleanup of dangerous debris, interim verbal report. I believe we have Mr. Berezowski here. He's coming forward.
Morning.
Good morning. See you, Jim. Go ahead. You can just give us the update on the work of the proactive cleanup, please. Thank you.
Yeah, it's moving along very well, actually, based on the funding that was approved in the past budget. The staff, two staff, as identified in the approved budget, started collection on April 22nd at 16 identified parks throughout the city. That was 16 agreed upon parks, and they, in the first, I'd say 8 days, April 22nd to May 1st roughly, they collected 944 needles from those 16 locations. The hotspots, Boston Park was, had collected over 300 in Boston Park. Fort Douglas Park had about 173. And the Assiniboine River Walk, about 172. So those were your hotspot locations. And on top of that, some of the other items that were found during the collection process, 239 pipes, we had 28 bags with drugs and traces of drugs, and we had 3 full needle disposal kits. And that's that group, the two-person crew that's delivering that as well. Our existing crews in parks had collected there was around a couple hundred additional needles collected in other areas that we were tracking. The one thing, like some of the positives on the cleanup of these needles is our staff that are coming across the people in the park areas, they're very understanding and appreciative of the work that our staff are doing. So we're seeing a lot of positivity in the community as a result. A number of other organizations we don't want to lose sight of are additionally picking up needles as well. So what we're seeing is one piece of a larger community effort. This two-person group, they weren't picking up needles right in the encampments, but they were collecting in areas adjacent to encampments. And again, because that's the start of the season and the remnants of the snow melt, we probably feel that the spike is at the front end, and we're hoping to see that be a little more manageable in its numbers down the road. Obviously, we, this is a seasonal service being budgeted for. We may see that we have to deal with this for a period of time that we don't yet know on, but we're going to continue this on. We'll have to look at the time and the funding required for that. In a nutshell, that was...
Okay, thank you. Any questions at all related to this? Councillor Lukes.
So, and maybe this isn't, I think this is specific to this. There's so many cleanup operations. So Public Works has contractors that you send out to do cleanups.
The contractors that are identified or the cleanups, mindful cleanups at the movement of individuals that are marginalized and taking housing. And then we'll have crews go in and do that full cleanup after that site is vacated.
So who else does cleanups? Because there's mystery cleanups happening in a particular encampment that I've got, which is great, but it's not your team. Who
Yeah,
is it?
like there's, again, with the various, like Slow Mission, there's a lot of, there's a good number of cleanup groups that are identified to go in and do mindful cleanups at certain locations. And then there's the community as well. A lot of communities, if you look at Waterfront Drive, they organize cleanup campaigns. Most times they'll contact the city to collect the garbage after their cleanups, especially in and around the either after or during the free pickup weekend that just passed.
Okay, so we have an encampment, let's say we have an encampment. Who monitors who goes in to clean up? Like when two big trailers and trucks come, that's not community members, and if that's not your people, like this is great that people are going in, but don't we have an idea of who's going in?
Not every, depending on if it was triaged through the city process.
Yeah, which it was.
Then yes, then we would know, and it would be, we've had certain instances where we've had multiple groups identified for the cleanup, and that's coordinated. In cases where it's not going through that city process and it's managed differently, then we wouldn't know, and we would only find out after if something was left over. If you're referring to the Darcy cleanup, for example, that wasn't through Public Works for that cleanup.
No, I know. We had asked Public Works, and then you guys went and said it was done. So
Yeah.
I guess mindful cleanups are important. It's just, it seems a little bit loose on who's cleaning up or understanding, which is great that it gets cleaned up, but
Yeah, and again,
I don't know who the owner is of the cleanup.
and again, you have communities that are looking at mindful cleanups.
Yeah, well,
and
these
they're
are
not gonna
trailers
reach out
with
to the
flatbeds
city
that go in. They're not the
necessarily.
community
Yeah.
members, but, okay, so we don't know. So that's fine. Thanks.
Just a reminder, Councillor Eady, go ahead.
I wanted to thank Mr. Berezowski for their report, and I just thought Councillor Gilroy was not able to attend today, so I just wanted Public Works to know that she believes that the program's working really well now, and she's heard from families who really appreciate it. So I just wanted to note that the effort from the public service is excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make sure our staff are aware of it.
Yeah, please pass that on to Mr. Domke. I will note as well, just a reminder to everybody, in our budget, 2025 budget, in recommendation G, that the province of Manitoba and/or Winnipeg Regional Health Authority be requested to take responsibility for the collection of disposed needles within the city of Winnipeg that were distributed by them or their partners and consider a needle exchange program that encourages the value being placed on return needles. So clerks would have sent, following the passing of the budget, anything related to asking the province to do something, clerks would have sent a letter to the province. Don't know if they've heard back yet or not, but we're going to follow up today. I'll follow up today with our clerks just to see if we've heard back from the province of Manitoba related to this request that was adopted by council as part of the budget process. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Berezowski. With that, Councillor Santos, would you move adoption of this verbal report, please?
Yeah, I'll move the verbal report. Thank you.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. Councillor Lukes, item 8 is the Age-Friendly Winnipeg Action Plan.
Yeah, so this is, we had a very good meeting with Connie Newman, representing many age-friendly communities in the city of Winnipeg. We've looked to other cities on what they've been doing with their age-friendly action plan. We had an action plan developed in 2014. Actually, I recall working on that prior to being elected. And then, since 2014, now when you look at the action plan, wow, we've accomplished a huge amount of actions related to age-friendly, moving our city towards age-friendly. So this motion is to have the Human Rights Committee work with the departments on updating the plan and then looking at, kind of next steps with each department's area of responsibility to continue it going. So we're very happy about this, working with Councillor Rowlands and her team on the Human Rights Committee and Connie Newman. And we look forward to working with the public service on coming up with updates and the next steps. So with that, I'd like to just move this motion.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. A good motion and good work here on this item. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. Councillor Duncan, can you do items 9 and 10, please? Subdivision rezoning 787 and 783 Archibald Street, and then subdivision rezoning 414 and 418 Gertrude Avenue.
Yes, item number 9, I'll move the Community Committee recommendation.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 10.
Item 10, I will also move the City Center Community Committee recommendation.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Audit Committee, annual audited consolidated financial statements of the City of Winnipeg for the year ended December 31st, 2024. Councillor Brody.
Thank you very much. I'd like to, first of all, thank the CFO and her entire team of folks that prepare the financial statements every year. It's the multi-year award-winning financial statements that have been recognized by their professional associations. Also like to thank our external auditors for their work on this project as well. So clean audit, and I'll move it.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Report of the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services dated May 5th, 2025. There are 4 items. Councillor Santos.
Thank you. I'd like to move consent agenda items 1 through 4.
Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Question period? Just kidding. Item, report of the Standing Policy Committee on Water Waste and the Environment dated May 5th, 2025. Councillor Eady.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the consent agenda of water waste reports items 1 through 4.
3? Okay. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Report of the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works dated May 6, 2025. There are 3 items there. Councillor Lukes.
I'd like to move items 1 and 3 and pull number 2 and just say a few words about number 2.
Okay, all in favor of 1 and 3, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Councillor Lukes on number 2, transit automatic fare collection strategy.
Right, so this is a great step forward that we're moving on, another step forward in improving our transit system. This is the fare collection strategy. The department did a really thorough overview of what the silver option will be providing us so that we can improve the ability and the ease of taking transit. So the goal is, to use your credit card, debit card. You can purchase different packages, but the fare collection strategy is something that was approved, or the funding for the fare collection was approved in our 4-year budget, and now they're refining what the needs are. This report comes forward seeking an additional amount of capital funding, which we did approve in the Public Works Committee. I think it's really important from just sort of the whole mode share shift. We're doing a lot of work with transit. All our routes are changing. We've got transit security. We're putting funding into fare collection. We want more people to take the bus. It's great for the environment. It's great for our roads. And the public wants this, so we're moving in that direction. And this is just another very significant step in that process.
Thank you. Councillor Waddy?
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank council and colleagues on past budget working groups even. This was one of the priorities we identified and said to transit, we need to move this up. PAYGO hasn't worked. People who want to pay, in some cases, aren't able to pay. We're losing some revenue. We know it. We're going to bring forward a modern fare system. We're going to do things like, for example, fare capping. You go to New York City for a weekend, you keep tapping the same credit card, it gets to a maximum amount, and then you don't get charged anymore. This will encourage people to use transit more in many cases. It will have lots of options to pay if you don't have access to a credit card or even a debit card. But again, for the convenience of those who do, this will make things easier. So again, we're able to continue using, it sounds like, our current fare boxes to continue accepting cash payments for now. Once everybody gets completely comfortable with electronic payments, perhaps at some point we move out from that. But it's a very, very good first step. Again, I use transit almost more when I travel than when I'm in Winnipeg, but we are really behind the 8 ball on this one. This is going to be really good.
Okay.
Thank you both for your comments. Yeah, I'll maybe just tie this report to, in fact, one of the reports we just voted on to receive in Councillor Eadie's portfolio, the public opinion research on Winnipeg climate change action. And the public really said that, their number one priority when it comes to climate change was to, relates to kind of getting more people on transit, for more people to, as Councillor Luke says, make that mode shift, get out of cars and into transit. So here we have a significant investment once again in transit, as my colleagues have articulated. It ties in with the priorities on climate change that Winnipeggers polled have articulated. So these are significant investments in our transit system to make a better transit system, a more modern transit system for more Winnipeggers to rely upon regularly. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. Moving on then to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development dated May 8th, 2025. Councillor Duncan.
I believe there's a few items that are being looked to be pulled. However, I will move consent agenda.
Okay, just, there's a couple items, I think.
I'll take 13.
You want 13 pulled?
13.
Okay.
8.
8, all right. And I think that, is one related to, is it a receive as info on one?
Extension of time, I think.
Just confirm that.
Extension.
Of 90 days.
Extension.
Okay, so it's an extension of time, that's fair. Okay, I would like to pull 2 and 4. So then that being said, I will call, unless anyone has anything else, I'll call the question on 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9 through 12. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Item number 2, an expression of interest in associated lease of 2305 McPhillips Street, Garden City Shopping Center. Before we move that, I just wanted to just highlight the fact that for many years, Councillor Sharma, to her credit, has been working hard to get library services kind of into the northwest corner of the city of Winnipeg. And that is, it seems that the southwest, southeast, northeast, northwest parts of the city are really, really growing. And so more people living up in that part of the city of Winnipeg, requiring city services that don't have some city services yet, and library services is certainly one of them. So this, to me, is an exciting project that now we're looking to have library services in that upper northwest quadrant of the city. Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that Councillor Sharma has advocated for this over several years. Unfortunately, we're not able to meet the target for the opening coming up here in 2025, but looking to 2026 for the actual opening. And the good news about this is that this will be the 21st library in Winnipeg. So adding on to our collection already of 20, going up to 21. And we did hear from a delegate who expressed some concerns about the lease option rather than purchasing of actual brick and mortar. I think that there are some great examples. Being a homer here with the Charleswood Library being one of them, but there are also 5 other leases that are throughout the city, including the St. Boniface Library, which is one of our busiest libraries, and several libraries throughout the city that are going to this model that are placed in areas that are busy, that are becoming community centers for action amongst the population. So this is another step towards that, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, with the dynamic growth in the northwest corner. So we'll see this library open and we'll have 21 on the books.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lukes.
Yeah, no, this is great. This has been worked on for a long time. When you look at the library strategic plan, I don't think that's the exact terminology of it, but when you look at the library strategic plan, the next library up is slated to be the Waverly West Ward. You will recall, Mr. Mayor, when you were a councillor and chair of finance at the time, the funding for that library was switched into seed funding for the rec campus so that we could have skin in the game to enable federal and provincial contributions, which we got. So really, the next library on the books that should be funded is the Waverly West one. Not adding others, but that is the next one slated on the books, and that's what I'm hoping to see.
Thank you. You have awakened Councillor Eady. Councillor Eady, go ahead.
So I'm glad that this project's moving forward. Also in the northwest quadrant, there really wasn't any land available to build a library. And this is kind of a central regional roads that meet up in the northwest. I don't know what the name of it is, but I personally call it the Old Kildonan Library versus the West Kildonan Library. I just wanted to say, talking about policy. So I did the analysis according to the policy some years ago and kept presenting it and pointing out that the West Kildonan Library was serving an extra 28,000, projected to be even 40,000 by this year. So, because the library, you know, it serves a certain amount of people in our policy, and I'm just happy that I was able to work with Councillor Sharma on this. The lease option is pretty well the only option in this case, and I will cite Councillor Brawadi's Henderson Library, operating out of a mall, is, I think, our busiest library.
It was.
Yeah. Was, yeah. Anyway, so of course I'm supporting this. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll call the question on this item. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 4, relocation of residential strategic facilities master plan capital program budget to the 2025 Health, Life Safety, Emergency Systems Refurbishment Citywide Accessibility Capital Program budget. We need longer titles. Okay. I pulled this just because I wanted to highlight, I believe one of the items in here is the installation of hearing loops. And it's something I actually campaigned on. It's one of those features that really enhances the city, any city building that would have a hearing loop, makes the whatever's going on in that building more readily accessible to those that are perhaps hearing impaired at any age of life, including, of course, seniors. We talked about an age-friendly motion that just came forward. this is one of those things, I know Councilor Lukes has talked about this as well. These are features that can be put in a building, a hearing loop, that, again, make that building and everything going on in that building more accessible to more people so that they can hear what is going on there. So I know there's more than that in this report, but I just wanted to highlight that. This is good, something I campaigned on, really glad to see it here. Any other comments at all? Okay. Councilor Duncan, you want to move this item then?
Yeah, I will move as recommended by the Public Service.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. All right. Item number 8 is the closing portion of Craddock Avenue east of St. Mary's Road, DAC 1, 2025. Maybe Councillor Duncan, can you just introduce this, please?
Let me just pull this up here. This item came to us, and I just want to be clear that this was a public hearing matter. So I want to be cautious. Yes.
I'm leaning over talking to our clerk.
Yes,
May-
and I am stalling as best as I can.
May we interrupt you, because the clerk can provide clarity. This is one of these,
Yes.
it's a bit of a unique, it's a bit of a dodo bird of a situation when it comes to closings and hearings. So
Thank you.
Thankfully, Kate stays up late at night reading the details of these kind of matters, so she can give us clarity.
Thank you.
So I'm so sorry, I didn't hear the question.
There was no question. It was a slight delay to allow you to
Okay.
complete your conversation.
So do
Like
you
a
wanna
hearing,
clarify?
yeah,
Okay.
just a hearing and a closing and a hearing, it's treated a
Sure.
bit differently, is what you're telling me.
Yes, a closing, once it's no longer at the hearing body, is treated a little bit differently than a subdivision and rezoning as it moves forward. We structure it as a closing at community committee, but technically, it's not what we would determine to be a traditional public hearing.
Okay,
Yeah.
So you
Okay.
can have the
Okay.
public service come forward and talk
we can
about
have
it.
at her. Okay, so my way of background, this was an item that came to us from Riel Community Committee with the recommendation to not concur in the public service, with the public service, and to in fact close a portion of Craddock Avenue east of St. Mary's Road. At the Standing Committee on Property and Development, we considered this item. On one side was the Public Service, Public Works Department saying that do not close this at this point in time because there is a future possible roadway expansion from Abenoji-Nikama, formerly known as Bishop Grandin, to create some type of off-ramp onto St. Mary's. On the other side, the Community Committee recommendation looking more towards housing on the location that is actually connected to Craddock. So Craddock doesn't actually serve any residential houses. It only serves the one business and the parking lots adjacent to it. So at the time, the committee voted 2-1 to revert back to the public service recommendation to not close. So that's where we sit today. And we did hear from Public Works on this, and I think it might be a good idea to hear from members of public service yet again, if that's the will of this committee.
Okay, would members like to hear from the public service on this item, or?
I'm the one that stood it down, so I don't need to hear from the public service. I only
Okay.
stood it down just to be marked in continuous opposition
Okay.
to what was voted on at the committee, just because the public service had mentioned their timelines were 10 to 20 years out, and I don't foresee any changes. So for me, it was like a short term, and housing was important, and that's why I voted the way I did. So
Thank
that's the
you,
only reason
Council.
why I stood it down.
Thank you. So to follow the bouncing ball again, public service said, don't close.
Correct.
Community committee said, close. Standing committee said, don't close, 2-1.
Standing committee said, don't close.
Yeah, which would our public service said, so.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions on this at all, or comments?
I just wanted to speak to it.
I'll speak to it in a
I'm gonna go
minute,
with
but
the
you go
public
ahead,
service.
Councillor Eady. Go ahead. Councillor Eady, please go ahead. Yeah.
I'm just gonna, on this one, I'd be supporting the public service. A lot of these streets were planned out way years ahead, and why close it if from 10 to 20 years from now it would be expanded, so.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Eady. Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, I think it's also important just to note that this was indicated on the malls and corridors map for development, which added another wrinkle to this because, you know, my expectation would be that the departments would have a review of that malls and corridors map and see, oh, this is a future roadway, maybe don't include it. So some conflicting messaging from our friends with the public service there, which lands us here today again. So really a decision on allowing this to stay as a potential for a roadway or to close and move towards what sounds like a potential development for housing.
So can I
Go,
just
yes, of
clarify?
course, Councillor Lukes, go ahead.
It is not part of malls and corridors?
It is.
It is.
It is. So what they build falls under the malls and corridors, even though it's not right on the street?
Pretty much is right on the street.
Well, it is the street. Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
on St. Mary's.
got it. Okay.
I think, which is completely fine. I think the ZPC will be split on this one, and that's fair. I will be supporting the community committee and agreeing with the closure. I think that I'm probably landing similar to Councillor Santos on this one. I appreciate that our staff needs to do their part and their due diligence to try to preserve this portion for any potential future redesign. I think of Abanoji-Mikina. I believe that's so far off, and in the intervening time, and things could change many times. What we've got right now is we do have our malls and corridor strategy. I think this is a prime location for development of multifamily, if that's the, indeed the interest of the property owner. So I will be supporting the community committee's recommendation to close the item and, or close the street at this.
So you'll be voting against this?
So I'll be voting against the
Correct.
standing committee's recommendation and concurring with the community committee's recommendation,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
So this is, we'll just get this clear of who's voting which way. So I'll call the question on the matter. I think Councillor Duncan is moving concurrence with the standing committee,
Correct.
okay?
Correct.
So all those in favor of basically the public service recommendation to not close, say aye.
Aye.
That's Councillors Duncan and Edie. Okay. All those opposed,
Nay.
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 So that is Santos, Lukes, Parwadi, Gillingham on the nay.
Okay. Is there an alternative motion that can go forward?
The alternative motion then
Is
would
the
be
Real Community
to
Committee's
concur
motion.
with the Real Committee. Councillor Lukes moves concurrence, or I guess Councillor Santos was there, so,
Yeah.
on Standing Committee. So Councillor Santos moves concurrence with the Community Committee's recommendation.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay? All those in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Santos, Lukes, Parwadi, Gillingham. Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Edie, Duncan.
Recorded in opposition?
Record in opposition, please.
Got that, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
All good?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on then to item 13, which is the rezoning of 815 Pandora Avenue West, DAZ 2162024. Councillor Duncan, do you want to just introduce this, please? And then we'll, I think Councillor Edie and Lukes and maybe Rawadi have comments. Councillor Duncan?
Yes, this was referred back to the Standing Policy Committee on Property Development from Council. Councillor Wyatt requested an amendment to have a multi-use pathway constructed from the end of the existing sidewalk on Pandora to the end of the piece of property in question here for the rezoning. That was voted on unanimously in support of the amendment at SPC P&D. My understanding, the area councillor is hoping to have a multi-use pathway built in its entirety sometime in the future along Pandora, and this would be the first leg of it, although small in distance, a start for the pathway and its potential future.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Eady?
So I don't know if the public service is here able to answer, but the first thing that
They're not.
pops in my mind, I'm not
They're not.
opposed to the AT. I'd just like to know,
Okay, I'm looking at
in the plans for active transportation and AT pathway, is this part of the planned
Councillor
portion
Eady?
for Pandora?
So our staff is not here, but my staff had looked that up and sent me a message that Pandora is deemed a medium to high priority
do.
for a sidewalk.
Wait.
Oh,
We do. I
What?
saw Mr.
someone there?
Chris Baker.
Mr. Chris Baker.
Oh, Mr. Baker, well, it's better to.
Excellent.
There you go.
Well, Mr. Baker,
Yeah.
there we go. Well, thank you very much. Did you hear the question, Mr. Baker?
I'm trying to figure out, are you going down the north side or south side in your projection for a future AT pathway?
On Pandora, we'd be considering the north side. That's where the path and sidewalk exist east of Plessis. And there's a nice wide boulevard there, and there's some existing pieces of sidewalk. So we would be, yes, targeting the north side. And it is in the policy and the pedestrian cycling strategies, both the existing and the draft update.
Okay.
Okay, just while he's here, can I ask a
Go ahead,
question?
Councillor Lukes.
So on the south side, you've got a sidewalk basically sort of, not really, but sort of from Plessis to Robson and then past that, correct? Well, actually, how far does it go? On the south side. So on the south side, you have a sidewalk of Pandora, correct?
Yeah, it appears it goes all the way to Bernays or Owen Street.
Right, okay. So then you would want on the north side, you're wanting to put a multi-use path or the multi-use path and sidewalk? I guess we could put both, really, right?
There is an opportunity for that. That is the cross-section east of Plessis. It's actually a bidirectional bike lane and a separate sidewalk, which is a more ideal configuration, separating those users.
Right.
So we like to do that where possible. It's difficult to achieve. It requires a lot more space. So that would be a consideration in this location, also because we have the wide boulevard and some segments of existing sidewalk on the north side. That said, it could also just be a multi-use path. That exists all over the city. That's what exists on Plessis south of Pandora. And on the east side of Pandora, the bike lane and sidewalk actually merge into one crossing just due to space constraints at the intersection. So it wouldn't be that abnormal for the users to then transition just to the multi-use path in question today, crossing Plessis.
Oh, okay, so then, in your opinion, you know, we have this sidewalk in front of the Access Credit Union, the 1,300 Plessis. Then we have a gap of another owner. Then we have this one here today. So in your opinion, should this individual be putting in a sidewalk and a section of multi-use path, or just the multi-use path, or just the sidewalk? What's the goal? What does the plan say?
Well, our comments originally on this application were that the applicant of, I believe it's 815 Pandora.
Yes?
Just pay for their share, their frontage of a multi-use path. And then that left sort of the door open for us to just do that, or if we did want to extend the sidewalk and path, bike lane cross-section, we could do that as well. But we felt like asking for both might be a lot for this small site. It's a pretty small parcel compared to the entire run of this, like west of Pandora or west of Plessis. So we just asked for the applicant to pay their share for the multi-use path. So we didn't have a path to nowhere in front of their property, and we could then have that in the bank too when we get to this location in the future.
Okay, so that's the request, is to have them put funding in the bank so that you've got it, so that when we do, let's say the other two lots on either side come forward for some kind of rezoning or something, then that would trigger them to also kick in their portion, and then on we go.
Yep, those were our original comments back in 2024, I guess, when this was
And that's the standard procedure, right? Like, I don't recall ever doing a development where I've asked the developer to put a sidewalk or a pathway on someone else's frontage in front of them, like,
I think it's happened, but it's not, it's abnormal. And again, because this is such a small frontage comparatively to this segment of Pandora, we just went with their frontage.
sure, okay.
So, Councillor Ely?
Yeah, I need a follow-up question. So on either side of this particular lot, there is no sidewalk?
There's a sidewalk, 2 parcels to the east. So from Plessis to a private approach in front of the bank, there's, just quickly measure it here. It's about,
So,
about 40 meters of sidewalk, then there's an approach, and then there's a gap for the next parcel over. I think it's a car lot. So that gap is about 60 meters to the parcel in question today.
okay, so what I'm trying to get at here is just, so, like, they're building housing units here, 18. I'm concerned about pedestrians at all times, cyclists too, but, so really, if they were asked to put in a sidewalk on their frontage, that wouldn't work either, right? Is that correct?
There would still be, yeah, there would be a 60-meter gap between the existing segment of sidewalk at Plessis and this location.
All right, okay. And, well, I don't know if this is for you, but, so they're putting in money for their portion of the multi-use pathway. And in the future, you may go with a sidewalk and a cycling separate. I guess you'll have to incorporate putting in a sidewalk in your own budget if there's no sidewalk money put in. Is that correct?
We would assess the situation once we get to it. This project isn't scoped. I don't have the priority in front of me, but I don't believe it's in one of our high priorities. So this is a future project. So we would see how development in the area unfolds and then assess the appropriate cross-section at the time. Again, it could either just be a multi-use path, the entire run, or it could we could mirror what exists east of Plessis. Again, the separated bike lane and sidewalk.
Okay, all right.
Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Just looking at this now, why would we not, okay, so this development comes forward, Public Works has a look at it, says, yeah, let's put some money into a reserve for a potential multi-use pathway or sidewalk on the north side. So we're gonna start from scratch on the north side when there's already a sidewalk on the south side. Is the only motivation to go to the north side because we could potentially have funding from any future developments? Because there's no lack of room on the south side from what I'm seeing here on our mapping system to just build a multi-use beside the existing sidewalk.
On the south side, you're saying?
On the south side. So is the only motivation because we can piece by piece get a contribution here?
The motivation is mainly that the path, the cycling accommodation is on the north side, east of Plessis. So that would just be a seamless extension of that. We also have, there is a nice wide boulevard there. I haven't even considered the south side just because of those two reasons. And then it's, I guess, a bonus that there's redevelopment opportunities on the north side that we can take advantage of as well.
Okay, so to the east, it's, now I see this here. So there is a mixed use pathway, okay, a multi-use.
Yeah, and that extends the entire extent of Pandora to the east. So it'd just be a seamless connection for someone on a bike.
However, Plessis on Pandora to the west is not, you said, in your short term?
It's in the policy, we just don't have the project isn't scoped yet, so there isn't funding identified. The city has a lot of priorities, so this one is not at the top of the list.
Huh. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Brady?
Thank you very much. Again, I've struggled with this one. It was a community committee. We did one thing. You know, you could argue that this developer should be perhaps even putting in both a sidewalk and a multi-use path. So requiring the applicant to do just multi-use path and doing it beyond the site isn't necessarily unreasonable at this point. So I'm thinking of perhaps supporting the community, or the Standing Policy Committee recommendation.
Which was what again?
To require the applicant to construct the sidewalk from the terminus of the existing sidewalk, but build an active transportation pathway from that point across their property. So it does add the connectivity, and at some future point, you know, we could do the AT path to Plessy, which would bring AT path all the way to the site, and it is it is consistent with the master plan. Again, should there be a sidewalk going from the end of the Access Credit Union sidewalk? I don't know, but again, this would at least tie in the new redevelopment here to the sidewalk, even if it is over a random piece of AT path.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand you. Are you saying you're supporting not a multi-use path, but a sidewalk?
No, I'll go with the multi-use path, and from where the sidewalk ends through this property.
By the Access Credit Union?
Yep.
West to?
And the reason I'm doing so is because I think it would have been reasonable to have asked this applicant to build both sidewalk and multi-use path in front of their property. And at some future point, there may be a sidewalk is required that we would likely need to tax support, but.
Okay, I think we've got Councillor Lukes, then Duncan again.
Okay, so I can't believe Councillor Barati and I are on different sides of the fence on this one, but we are. So, sure, I mean, I'm a huge supporter of active transportation, but I'm also a huge supporter of having people pay for what they're responsible for and not over and above. And to have this particular small apartment block, which we're trying, like, they're going to have to pay for it somehow, and who's going to pay for it? It'll be the people renting the apartments. So I strongly believe that the developer should pay only for what's in front of his building, not what's in front of someone else's building, only what's in front of his building, and that being a multi-use pathway. So, Madam Clerk, I'm not sure if I have to make a motion like that. I won't be supporting Councillor Barati on this. I won't be supporting the recommendation that came from PP&D. What was the recommendation that came from, I guess, the public service?
I'm not sure that I would be qualified to speak to the
well.
specifics of what that recommendation
Well, it must be in
is.
the report here that what came from the public service. So that's what I'll be supporting, which I'm assuming it's going to be multi-use pathway in front of, are you there?
So community committee. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Chris, go ahead, Chris.
I don't have the report in front of me. I have a email that we sent in indicating our comments, which was the developer shall pay to the city in cash on demand their share of a 3.5 meter wide asphalt multi-use pathway in the North Boulevard of Pandora along the full length of the planned area. Blah, blah, blah.
That's what I'm
So,
supporting.
but I think that should probably be confirmed in the report before you vote.
Chris, sorry, I see we have Mr. Gord Chapel here, but Chris, can you just confirm what you said was that your recommendation was that the developer pay their share?
Their share of their frontage of 815 Pandora, yes.
So it'd be
Of
their,
the-
basically, it's their frontage would be the key word.
That was our recommendation, yes, my recollection and what I have in front of me, but again, I don't have the approved report in front of me, so someone should confirm that.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it, councillors, if it's okay with you all, we have Gordon Chappelle here. I'm going to turn to Gord Chapel just to kind of, maybe you've been listening to this conversation. If you can provide any clarity or any answers to any outstanding questions, we'd appreciate that. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chris was correct. Schedule B, Section 2, Service and Conditions, indicates the information or confirms the information that Chris just provided.
Schedule B,
Schedule B.
Appendix B.
page 30.
Oh, page 30, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the original.
Not Appendix B, but Schedule B.
Servicing conditions. Oh, yeah, here we go. That the developer shall pay to the city along the full length of the planned area abutting the north side. Okay, so that's what I'm supporting. I'm not making, I mean, I'd love for developers or whoever to pay for everyone's pathway, but that makes no sense. And if we ask this developer to do that, to pay for other stretches of property, all they're going to do is up the cost of the apartments because someone's got to pay for it. So in our, if we want to standardize things and make things consistent throughout the city, we should be adhering to the policy, and that's what I'm going to adhere to. I'd love to make all my developers pay for all the pathways in Waverly West, but that's not right.
So to be clear, Councillor Luke, so we understand, I'm looking right now at Appendix B, which is the map.
Yes.
It's got red highlights on it. You're saying you're supportive of the developer paying just that portion in front of their property, which is at 815 Pandora, and not the portion which is arguably at this point the Kia property.
Exactly.
Okay, because the Access Credit Union property has a sidewalk, it does not have a multi-use pathway. Okay, all right, that's your position, thank you. Any other questions for our staff? We're here, thank you. You both provided clarification on some matters. Any other questions from any councillor? Councillor Eady?
I just want to make one final point. The developer has a responsibility to anybody who's a pedestrian, doesn't own a car, that they can access their apartment off of a city sidewalk. And so I'm okay with a compromise that says they're paying into a fund for an eventual multi-use pathway, but in the meantime, what sidewalk, or is the city going to build the sidewalk because those pedestrians need a sidewalk? So anyway, that's I just wanted to air my final concern on that, but yeah, so if you do a local improvement, you ask each owner, right, and they say no or whatever, but they're not thinking about pedestrians, and anyway, I'll leave it at that.
I have one question for our staff. You may not have the answer to this. Do we know, I believe this clause was inserted by the area councillor. Do we know if that councillor reached out to the other property owners, specifically Kia Access, asking for them to pay a portion of a multi-use pathway?
I don't have an answer to that question.
Okay. Fine. Okay, thank you both. I don't think there's any further questions. Thank you for your time today. Appreciate it. Okay, we have the matter before us then. The motion sounds like there's 2 or 3 different places people want to land on this, so we can vote on this just straight up. I think it was what we should do, unless, Madam Clerk, you have something.
I just wanted to confirm that Councillor Duncan's motion to concur with SPC recommendation is on the table. I understand Councillor Lukes would like to amend that. I'm not sure if Councillor Duncan is open to that amendment at this time. And then I just also wanted to confirm, if you wanted to, Councillor Lukes, if you wanted to go with the original public service language, or if you wanted to go with the amendment that was moved at community committee, a slight amendment to that language.
Can you reiterate for us what the original public service language was?
Yes. The developer shall pay to the city in cash on demand their share of a 3.5 meter wide asphalt multi-use pathway in the North Boulevard of Pandora West. Reading is hard for me today. Of Pandora Avenue West along the full length of the planned area abutting the north side of Pandora Avenue West. All is determined by and to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works. And Community Committee
Sorry, before you go further, when he says the full length of the planned area, is that related specifically to just the property boundaries for 815
Yes.
Pandora? That's not the full length, basically 815 Pandora west portion all the way to Plessis. That's not that.
No, it's the
just
planned
their
area for
property.
the development.
Okay? Do you have a question specific to that
I
question?
can give you a little bit more clarity.
I think I
Planned
go ahead,
area,
go ahead, yeah.
if you
Go
want.
ahead, go ahead, sure.
The planned area is approximately 25 meters. The area that the committee moved is approximately 100 meters.
Thank you for the help. Perfect. Carry on.
So then the amendment that Community Committee moved was they wanted to add the word or concrete sidewalk immediately after multi-use pathway. So it would have read, the developer shall pay to the city in cash on demand their share of a 3.5 meter wide asphalt multi-use pathway or concrete sidewalk in the North Boulevard of Pandora Avenue West.
Question for the clerk?
Sir, Councilor Santos?
What I'm suggesting is, I'm actually hearing what Councillor Lukes had mentioned and what the public service had mentioned. I'm interested in just doing just the one section, 2 servicing conditions, active transportation pathway. So that's 1A, and just amending that to go back to the public services recommendation and keeping all the other ones the same. Is that what you are suggesting we do, that we could do, or Councillor Lukes could do?
That's what Councillor Lukes is suggesting, yes.
Okay, okay. But it would go back to the original wording from what's in Schedule B, page 30.
Yes, and it would just be an amendment to BI 1A, and the remainder of the recommendations
Would stay.
would stay.
Okay, okay.
Councilor Dunn?
I should have asked this of Gord. I'm not sure if he's still around, if I may.
Mr. Chappell, you still there? You still there? Very good, thank you.
Is there a world where the applicant pays for this approximate 100 meters of multi-use pathway and then is repaid the, call it 75 meters that isn't theirs over time as the future pathway is built out?
Yeah, the development agreement parameters allow for reimbursement. Just a question of whether the adjacent properties are going to get redeveloped in any type of reasonable time.
Right, yeah, so that, we're kind of like speculating on all of that. which-
Okay.
And you're still hitting the individual with the cost of
at the
drawing
upfront
up
cost.
money for like, who knows how long.
That they'll pass on to rentlers.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So then, we have the original motion. But then, do we have, I guess the question is, do we have an amendment right now that we're voting on, or are we calling the question on the original motion?
Yeah. I'll do I guess we vote on the one, and then I'll make an amendment.
Well, you can make the amendment, we can vote on the matter as amended.
Do you need me to withdraw my motion?
No.
No, we can just have it as amended. Do you have the amendment there?
Yes, sorry. I just want to confirm, and this might be overkill, but I just want to confirm with the public service, if we just revert to the original ACG recommendation 1A, that it doesn't affect any of the other recommendations? And I don't know if board is still available.
Sorry, you want to amend,
Just
can you,
We want to go back to
go again? Yeah.
BI 1A, just to revert to the original wording in the ACG report?
At standing committee, we completely recomposed B. So the original section of, or the original report, B was just a standalone item. There was no sub-bullets to that. It was, recommendation 2 was covering the servicing conditions.
Got it. So if we revert to 1A, are any other amendments required? To the standing, like the recommendation in front of EPC today?
Sorry, this report changed a lot.
Yeah.
Is the suggestion to revert back to what the community committee recommended?
No, I think what the suggestion is from the conversation is that it will be concurring in the SPC recommendation as amended and just changing that Section 2 servicing conditions active transportation pathway, just changing that back to what the public service originally had in their ACG report, which just keeps it to the planned area.
BI 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 were added as a result of the change proposed. So yeah, those are no longer required. And as far as, you asked about 1A?
Okay, so then if you revert back to the language for the active transportation pathway, BI 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are no longer required?
Yes, they were only imposed as a result of that change. So it would strictly just be B. Sorry, I'm trying to read this through now. BI 1A is all that would be required.
Okay.
Councilor Santos?
Okay, so for clarity, Gord, my understanding, I1, the Section 2 servicing conditions, regional land drainage, all that stuff was what was moved at the Standing Policy Committee, right? And we,
I'm sorry, yes, 3 was still required.
3 was still required.
That's why, yeah, the community committee is recommendations might be easier to deal with. This gets a bit complicated.
Yeah.
Going with standing committee.
But I think the only thing that we're being discussed today at EPC is the active transportation pathway. So B1IA. All we want to do is amend B1IA. And we're going to keep the rest. Boulevards, regional land drainage, utilities, construction traffic, litter and refuse control. That's all going to stay. The only amendment that we're asking is the active transportation pathway.
Sure, I don't think that's going to have an impact. That wouldn't be typically how we'd handle it because there's no offsite works now. But for simplicity, yes, that might be the easiest thing. Sorry, I'm thinking this through. They're no longer constructing it though, correct? They're just paying their share. So there's no reason to have a servicing agreement. So again, it would make more sense to go back to the community committee.
Okay, so if we
Because
go back,
that's requiring them to pay their shares of both the drainage and the sidewalk.
so if we go back to the community committee, that means that deletes boulevards, utilities, construction traffic, litter and refuse and control. Those are all things that Councillor Wyatt had basically imposed onto the developer.
No, that was imposed as a result of the need for a servicing agreement because the developer was constructing offsite works. So that was a suggestion by the public service to include, as that was going to be necessary, language included in the servicing agreement. And what's being proposed is simply just collecting a share of the cost.
Correct.
So that's why if it's possible to move the community committee recommendation, it'll be easier because that's how it was originally considered.
Okay.
Okay.
Clear as mud?
Everyone clear on that?
No, it's even more confusing.
If it's possible to have a few moment break, we could perhaps come up with some wording for you quickly, just so that clarifies things for you.
I need a break.
Sure, game starts at 7, so as long as you can have it done by then, we're good. So let's just take a 5-minute break here, okay? Please, Travis, think we'll just take 5 here and be 5, 6, 7. Just let us know when you're ready to go, okay? Thanks, we'll take a break and then we'll come back in just a few moments. Okay, we're back. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Just getting clarity on this. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to our clerk, actually, just to give some clarity on the language that we're voting on here.
Okay. So just to confirm, Councillor Duncan has withdrawn his motion to concur in the Standing Committee's recommendation, and I believe there will be an amending motion from Councillor Lukes coming forward to concur in the Community Committee's recommendation. So what that means is recommendations 1 and 2 in front of the committee today will revert back to what the Community Committee originally recommended, and that means recommendation 3 is no longer required, and we'll renumber all the remaining recommendations accordingly.
Okay, that is the amendment then. I'll call the question on the matter as amended.
That's my amendment.
Yep.
Okay.
Right? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Opposed. Councillor Duncan opposed to the item. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Before we call for adjournment, I just want to,
No, we have
Camera.
got a bunch and
We still have
In
this
camera.
oh, we got to go in I'll maybe just make a note of this now. Maybe it's an awkward time, but I'll make a note of this. I wanted to do this before we started today, just to recognize someone who's contributed significantly to the work of Executive Policy Committee for many, many years. Kathy Newton, who's worked for the City Clerk's Department for her entire 38-year career, will be retiring at the end of the month. For the past 18 years, amongst her many other tasks, Kathy has supported the work of Executive Policy Committee. She is the one who prepares all of the meeting agendas for EPC. In her 18 years with this committee, she has prepared 527 agendas. It's quite remarkable. She's also the one who helps the public navigate the committee process by responding to emails, phone calls, registering delegations to speak at meetings. And over the years, she's registered many thousands of delegations to speak at Executive Policy Committee. And so for 38 years, Kathy has been a dedicated, hardworking employee for the city. And I think on behalf of all of us, and on behalf of all of council, not just EPC, I want to thank her for her contribution to the city and wish her all the best in her upcoming retirement. So thank you so much, Kathy. With that, then, we will move, motion to move in camera. Councillor Duncan, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We're live again. I'm going to ask Councillor Santos if she'll move consent agenda and adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We're adjourned.